The book slipped from Elena's trembling hands, landing with a soft thud on the store counter. 10 beautiful hardcover books, astronomy, marine biology, ancient civilizations, all the subjects her daughter Sophia had circled in red marker with the words "birthday dreams" written at the top. And Elena was about to return every single one of them. "I can't do this, March," Elena whispered to the bookstore owner, her voice cracking. The words tasted like ash in her mouth. "I need to cancel Sophia's order." Marge Bennett, who'd known Elena since high school, reached across the counter with a gentle hand. "Elena, honey, we can work something out. A payment plan, maybe." But Elena was already shaking her head, her dark eyes glassy with unshed tears. "The school cut my hours. It's between these books and keeping the lights on. Turns out you can't read in the dark anyway, right?" What Elena didn't know was that someone was watching this entire exchange. Daniel Cross sat in the far corner of the small bookstore, hidden behind a display of travel guides. He ducked into this quaint shop to escape the rain during his business trip to this sleepy Oregon town. He was supposed to be reviewing acquisition reports, but instead found himself completely captivated by the quiet devastation unfolding at the counter. The woman, Elena, he'd heard, held herself with such dignity even as her world was clearly crumbling. The way she straightened her shoulders, the way she refused pity, the fierce pride that wouldn't let her accept help. It struck something deep in Daniel's chest, a painful chord he hadn't felt in years. His younger sister, Maya, had looked exactly like that the last time he'd seen her. Standing in their childhood apartment, too proud to ask him for help, insisting she could handle single motherhood on her own. 3 months later, she was gone. A car accident that left Daniel with a 7-figure bank account and a lifetime of regret that no amount of money could erase. He watched Elena gather the books one last time, running his fingers over the glossy covers as if memorizing them. Then she turned and walked out of the store, the little bell above the door chiming, a cheerful sound that felt like mockery. Daniel sat frozen for a moment, then stood up abruptly. He approached the counter where Marge was wiping her eyes with a tissue. "Those books," Daniel said, his voice low and urgent, "the ones she just returned. I'll take them." Marge looked up, surprised. "Oh, well, that's kind of you, sir, but... And I need to know everything about this little girl's birthday. Sophia, right? When is it? What does she like? Who are her friends?" Marge's eyes widened. I'm not sure I should..." Daniel leaned forward, and Marge saw something in his eyes that made her pause. It wasn't the look of a wealthy man trying to feel good about himself. It was the look of someone who'd missed a chance once before and couldn't bear to miss another. "Please," Daniel said quietly, "let me do this. But she can never know it came from me. It has to look like her mother made it happen. Elena needs to be the hero in her daughter's eyes." Marge studied him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "Sophia's birthday is this Saturday. She's turning 10, and she's absolutely obsessed with science." For the next 3 days, Daniel Cross, founder and CEO of Crosstech Industries, a man whose business decisions moved markets, devoted himself to planning a 10-year-old's birthday party with the same intensity he brought to billion-dollar deals. He worked with Marge to coordinate with Sophia's teachers and the local community center. He arranged for the town's small science museum to bring interactive exhibits. He hired a planetarium company to set up a mobile dome, and he made sure every single detail was carefully orchestrated to appear as though Elena had somehow pulled off a miracle. The story they crafted was simple. A local STEM education initiative had randomly selected Sophia for a special birthday celebration to encourage young girls in science. The letter, printed on official-looking letterhead, arrived at Elena's modest apartment on Thursday evening. Elena read it 3 times, her hands shaking. It seemed impossible, too good to be true. but the letter included a phone number, and when she called it, a cheerful coordinator confirmed everything. Her daughter had been chosen, everything was arranged. All Elena had to do was bring Sophia to the community center on Saturday at 2 p.m. That night, Elena held Sophia tight and whispered, "Sometimes miracles are real, mija." Saturday arrived with brilliant sunshine. When Elena and Sophia walked into the community center, Sophia's gasp of pure wonder made every parent in the room smile. The entire space had been transformed into a scientific wonderland. The planetarium dome glowed in one corner. Interactive chemistry stations lined the walls. A massive telescope pointed toward the skylights. And in the center of it all sat a spectacular cake shaped like the solar system, each planet rendered in perfect detail. "Mommy," Sophia breathed, her eyes huge and shining. "How did you—" Elena knelt down, pulling her daughter close. "I found a way, baby," she managed to say, though she herself didn't quite understand how. "Because you deserve every star in the sky." From his position near the back door, Daniel watched the scene unfold. He'd planned to just drop by, confirm everything was running smoothly, and leave. But he found himself rooted to the spot, unable to look away from Sophia's joy and Elena's tears of grateful disbelief. This feeling, this vicarious happiness radiating from a child he'd never met, was worth more than any business deal he'd ever closed. For the first time since Maya's death, the constant ache in his chest eased just slightly. He was about to slip out unnoticed when a small voice stopped him. Are you the science angel?" Daniel looked down to find Sophia standing in front of him, chocolate cake smeared on her chin, her eyes bright with curiosity. What?" "Mrs. Bennet from the bookstore said that a science angel helped make this happen. Are you him?" Before Daniel could answer, Elena appeared, clearly having followed her daughter. Their eyes met, and in that instant, recognition flashed across Elena's face. She'd seen him in the bookstore. She'd seen him watching. The truth clicked into place with startling clarity. Elena's expression shifted through shock, gratitude, and then something Daniel didn't expect, a flicker of hurt, of feeling exposed, of realizing her moment of private desperation had been witnessed and acted upon. "Sophia, go finish your cake with your friends," Elena said quietly, her gaze never leaving Daniel's face. "But Mommy—" "Now, please." Sophia, sensing the adult tension, scurried away. "You did this." Elena stepped closer, her voice low and controlled. It wasn't a question. Yes, I admitted. "I'm Daniel Cross, and before you say anything, I want you to know that—" "I can't accept this," Elena interrupted, her voice tight. It's too much. I don't even know you. How am I supposed to—" "You're not supposed to do anything, Elena," Daniel said gently. "This isn't a transaction. There's no debt here." "Then what is it?" The question hung in the air between them. Daniel found himself without his usual smooth corporate answer. Finally, he said simply, "It's joy. Something I'd forgotten how to create. Your daughter gave me that gift. Consider us even." Before Elena could respond, Sophia came running back, her friends in tow, pulling Daniel into the party. For the next hour, he found himself explaining constellations, mixing safe chemical reactions, and laughing, genuinely laughing, for the first time in months. When the party finally wound down and guests began leaving, Elena approached him again. This time, her expression had softened. "Thank you," she said quietly, "but I need to understand why. What you saw in that bookstore, why did it matter to you?" Daniel looked at her, at this woman who'd somehow cracked through his carefully constructed walls in a matter of days. "My sister," he found himself saying. "She was like you, proud, strong, struggling alone, and I didn't help her when I could have. I can't change that. But maybe I can change this." Understanding bloomed in Elena's eyes, followed by something deeper: empathy, connection, the recognition of shared pain. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "And so am I." They stood together in the slowly emptying community center, two broken people who just found an unexpected mirror in each other's eyes. Neither knew it yet, but this was the moment their lives changed forever. What happens when a billionaire and a janitor discover they're not so different after all? The answer would transform both their worlds in ways neither could imagine. 3 days after the party, Elena found an envelope slipped under her apartment door. Inside was a formal letter from the Crosstech Foundation, requesting her participation as a consultant for their new single-parent education initiative. The compensation was listed as $5,000 for initial consultation and ongoing advisory role. Elena stared at the number, her heart pounding. $5,000. That was 3 months of rent, Sophia's entire school year of supplies, a security deposit on a better apartment. But it was also clearly Daniel's doing. Her first instinct was to refuse. She didn't need or want his charity disguised as a job. But then she read the details more carefully. They wanted her perspective on the real barriers facing single parents seeking education. They wanted her expertise, her lived experience, to shape programs that could help thousands of families like hers. This wasn't charity. This was work. Real work that valued what she knew. She called the number listed. Daniel answered on the first ring. "I'll do it," Elena said, "but I have conditions." "Name them." "This is a professional arrangement, nothing personal. And if I feel at any point that you're just trying to help me specifically rather than actually using my input, I walk." There was a pause on the other end. Then Daniel said quietly, "Deal. Coffee tomorrow? There's a place halfway between your town and Seattle, the Riverside Cafe. Fine, 2 o'clock. "Elena?" "Yes?" "Thank you. You have no idea how much I need your perspective on this." The sincerity in his voice made her hesitate. "Why? You're a billionaire. You could hire consultants with degrees and credentials." "Because they'd tell me what they think I want to hear. You'll tell me the truth. That's worth more than any credential." The Riverside Cafe was exactly the neutral ground they needed. Modern enough for his world, casual enough for hers. Daniel was already there when Elena arrived, dressed in dark jeans and a simple sweater, clearly making an effort to look less intimidating. It didn't quite work. Even in casual clothes, he carried an air of quiet authority that turned heads. Elena slid into the booth across from him, her notebook clutched like armor. "I've made a list of the actual barriers single parents face when trying to advance their education." "Perfect. I'm ready." For the first 30 minutes, it was purely professional. Elena spoke with passionate precision about the crushing logistics, childcare costs that often exceeded potential salary increases, inflexible class schedules that didn't account for shift work, the bone-deep exhaustion of studying after your child was finally asleep, the constant guilt of feeling like you were failing at everything simultaneously. Daniel listened with an intensity that was almost unnerving. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer easy solutions. He took notes, asked sharp follow-up questions, and genuinely tried to understand the complex architecture of her struggles. Most programs fail because they're designed by people who've never lived this reality. They think money solves everything. But it's not just about tuition. It's about time, energy, mental space. You can't study for an exam when you're worried about whether your kid is safe with a sitter you can barely afford. "So what would actually help?" Daniel asked, leaning forward. "Holistic support. On-site childcare at evening classes, peer study groups where parents can bring kids, flexible online options, mental health resources, small emergency funds for when your car breaks down and you're about to miss your final exam." She paused and added quietly, "And programs that don't make you feel like a charity case, that treat you like you're investing in yourself, not being rescued."
The last comment hung in the air between them. Daniel met her gaze steadily. "Is that how I made you feel? Like you needed rescuing?" Elena's professional mask slipped. "Honestly, yes, a little. I know you meant well, but when someone swoops in and fixes everything, it can feel like they're saying you're not capable of fixing it yourself." "That's not what I think," Daniel said softly. "Elena, you're the most capable person I've met in years. I wanted to give you the same fighting chance I had. I didn't build my company alone. I had investors, mentors, people who believed in me. Why shouldn't you have that too?" The vulnerability in his admission cracked something in Elena's chest. "Tell me about your sister, Maya." She watched his face shift, pain flickering across his features, before he controlled it. "Maya was brilliant. Smarter than me, actually. But she got pregnant at 19, and her boyfriend disappeared. Our parents had passed away by then, so it was just us. I was already in Silicon Valley, starting Crosstech. I was so focused on success, on proving myself, that I didn't realize how much she was struggling. She didn't ask for help? She did, once. She called me, said she was having trouble with rent. I sent her $5,000 and told her I was too busy to visit." His voice was hollow. 3 months later, she fell asleep at the wheel, driving home from her second job. She and my nephew both died in the crash. Elena's breath caught. "Daniel, that wasn't—" "I know what you're going to say. That it wasn't my fault. Everyone says that. But here's the truth. I had the resources to help her, genuinely. Not just throw money at the problem, but actually be there, rearrange my life to support her. And I chose not to. I chose my company over my family." The raw confession settled between them. Elena understood now, really understood what drove him. "You can't bring them back by helping me," she said gently. "I know." Daniel looked up, his eyes meeting hers with painful honesty. "But maybe I can honor them by doing better, by actually showing up." The conversation shifted after that. The professional boundaries they'd carefully maintained began to blur. Daniel talked about his divorce, about how his ex-wife had loved his bank account more than the person attached to it, about the profound isolation that came with success, where people stopped seeing you as human and started seeing you as a resource. "I know what it's like to be invisible," Elena replied softly. "Not because people want something from you, but because they don't see you at all. When you're a janitor, people look right through you. You're part of the scenery." "I see you," Daniel said quietly. The air between them thickened. Their coffee had gone cold, but neither noticed. The afternoon light streaming through the cafe windows caught the gold flecks in Elena's brown eyes, and Daniel found himself unable to look away. "This consultation," Elena said, her voice suddenly uncertain, "is that really all this is?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful but honest. "It started that way, a chance to give you something without making it personal. But now, Elena, I haven't felt this connected to another person in years, and it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I don't trust myself. Every relationship I've had since Maya died has been transactional. I don't know how to do this," he gestured between them, "without my money becoming the thing that defines it. And I don't want that with you." Elena absorbed his words, her own fears rising to meet his. "So what do we do?" she whispered. Before Daniel could answer, Elena's phone buzzed violently on the table. Sophia's school number flashed on the screen. Every parent's instinctive fear flooded through her as she answered. "Mrs. Martinez? This is Principal Chen. Sophia's fine, but we need you to come to the school. There's been an incident with her father. He's here claiming he has a right to take her, and—" Elena was on her feet before the principal finished. "I'm coming. Don't let her go anywhere with him." Daniel stood immediately. "What's wrong?" "Robert," Elena said, her voice tight with fear and fury. "My ex-husband. He's at Sophia's school." She was already moving toward the door, digging for her car keys with shaking hands. "I'll drive you," Daniel said. "Your hands are trembling." Elena wanted to refuse, wanted to handle this alone as she handled everything. But the thought of Sophia scared and confused, of Robert's manipulative charm working on school officials who didn't know better, made the decision for her. Okay, let's go. They ran to his car, a sleek silver Tesla that felt like a spaceship compared to Elena's ancient Honda, and Daniel drove with calm precision while Elena called her lawyer, her voice rising with each unanswered ring. He has no custody rights, Elena explained as they sped down the highway. He signed them away 3 years ago when he decided being a father was too much responsibility. But every 6 months or so he shows up playing the concerned dad and trying to convince everyone that I'm keeping his daughter from him. Why? Control? Guilt? Who knows? Robert's always needed an audience for his redemption story. Her voice was bitter with years of dealing with his patterns. They pulled up to the elementary school 15 minutes later. Elena was out of the car before it fully stopped, running toward the main office with Daniel close behind. What neither of them knew was that this crisis, this moment when Elena's past and present collided, would force them both to make a choice about what they really meant to each other.
Elena burst through the school office doors to find Sophia sitting in a chair, her small face blotchy from crying, while Robert leaned against the principal's desk with his characteristic easy charm fully deployed. "Elena." Robert straightened, his smile warm and practiced. "Finally, I was just explaining to Principal Chen that there's been a misunderstanding about our custody arrangement." "There's no misunderstanding," Elena cut him off, moving immediately to Sophia and pulling her daughter into a fierce hug. "You have no custody rights. You signed them away." "I signed away legal custody during a difficult time in my life," Robert countered smoothly, his tone reasonable and calm, the same tone that had once convinced Elena he'd change. "But I'm Sophia's father. I have a right to see my daughter." "You have the rights outlined in our agreement," Elena said, her voice steel. "Supervised visitation, twice a month, which you've skipped for the past 4 months. Principal Chen shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Silva did present identification proving he's Sophia's father, and I'm showing you the court order that says he doesn't have access without my permission." Elena pulled folded papers from her purse with shaking hands. It was then that Robert's gaze shifted past Elena and landed on Daniel, who'd been standing quietly in the doorway. Robert's expression flickered. Recognition, assessment, dismissal, all in a fraction of a second. "And who's this?" Robert's smile turned sharp. "New boyfriend already, Elena? That was fast. Sophia, has Mommy introduced you to her friend?" The implication was clear and vicious. Elena was parading men through her daughter's life. Sophia pressed closer to her mother, but before Elena could respond, Daniel stepped forward with a calm that somehow felt more threatening than anger. "Daniel Cross," he said, extending a hand that Robert had no choice but to shake. "A friend of the family. And you are?" The way Daniel said family, with quiet, absolute certainty, made it clear this wasn't a casual acquaintance. Robert's practiced charm faltered as he took in Daniel's expensive watch, his confident posture, the implicit wealth and power in his very presence. "Sophia's father," Robert managed, though apparently that doesn't mean much around here anymore. "Being a father means showing up," Daniel replied, his voice still pleasant, but his eyes cold, "not just when it's convenient for your narrative." The tension in the room crystallized. Elena felt something shift. Daniel wasn't just supporting her. He was positioning himself as a shield between her family and this man who'd caused them so much pain. Principal Chen cleared her throat. "Mr. Silva, I've reviewed Miss Martinez's documentation. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. Any custody discussions need to happen through the proper legal channels." Robert's mask slipped, showing a flash of genuine anger. But with Daniel's imposing presence and the principal's firm tone, he had no move left to make. "This isn't over," he said to Elena, his voice low. "Sophia deserves to know her father. A judge will see that." "Then talk to my lawyer,"
Elena replied, her arm protectively around Sophia's shoulders. "You know the number." Robert left with one last lingering look that promised future trouble. The moment the door closed behind him, Elena's knees went weak. Daniel's hand was immediately there, steadying her elbow. "I've got you," he murmured. Principal Chan tactfully busied herself with paperwork, giving them a moment. Sophia clung to her mother, and Elena realized with a pang that her daughter was trembling. "Mija, it's okay now," Elena whispered into Sophia's hair. "He's gone." "Is he really going to take me away?" Sophia's small voice broke Elena's heart. "Never," Elena said fiercely. "I promise you, baby, never." 20 minutes later, they were in Daniel's car heading back to Elena's apartment. Sophia had fallen into an exhausted sleep in the back seat, emotionally drained from the confrontation. Elena stared out the window, her mind racing. "Thank you," she said finally, "for being there. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," Daniel interrupted gently. "Elena, what he did, ambushing you at the school, trying to manipulate the staff, that's not co-parenting, that's harassment." "I know, but he does this. Every few months he decides he wants to play dad, usually when his girlfriend of the moment thinks it'll make him look good. Then when he realizes how much actual work parenting is, he disappears again." "What are you going to do?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. "My lawyer is good, but she's not cheap. I have some savings, but if Robert really pushes for a custody battle—" She didn't finish the sentence. They both knew what it meant. Lawyers cost money. The kind of money Elena didn't have, and the kind of money Daniel had in abundance. But asking felt impossible, especially now when they'd just been discussing how his wealth complicated everything between them. Daniel seemed to sense her internal struggle. "Elena, Please don't," she said quickly. "I can't ask you for money. I won't. This is my problem to solve." "It doesn't have to be," Daniel said carefully. "The foundation could—" "No." Elena's voice was firm. "This is exactly what we were talking about at the cafe. The moment you start solving my problems with your checkbook, I become your project again. I need to do this myself." Daniel pulled into the parking lot of her apartment building and turned to face her. In the dim light, his expression was conflicted. "What if I told you that helping the people I care about doesn't make you a project? What if it just makes you someone I care about?" The confession hung in the air between them. Elena's breath caught. "Daniel, I'm not asking you to let me fix everything," Daniel continued, his voice low so as not to wake Sophia. "I'm asking you to let me stand beside you while you fix it yourself. There's a difference." "Is there?" Elena asked, but her voice had lost its edge. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe that someone could help without taking over, could support without suffocating. "Let me prove it," Daniel said. "Give me a chance to show you that I can be here without being in control." "Okay," she whispered. "But the minute I feel like I'm losing myself in your world, I'm out. Deal?" "Deal." He helped her get Sophia upstairs and settled into bed. As they stood in the living room afterwards, the space felt intimate in a way the cafe hadn't. This was her life. The modest furniture, the toys carefully organized in bins, Sophia's science posters covering one wall. Daniel studied the posters with genuine interest. She made these? For her school science fair last year, she didn't win, but they're brilliant, Daniel finished, examining a detailed drawing of the water cycle with various annotations in Sophia's careful handwriting. "Elena, she's exceptionally talented." "I know, but talented doesn't pay for college. Talented doesn't guarantee opportunities. And now with Robert threatening custody—" "He won't win," Daniel said with quiet certainty. "Courts favor stability. You've given Sophia that for 10 years. He's been absent. That matters." "How do you know so much about this?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "After Maya died, there was a custody battle over my nephew. Her ex tried to claim he should have gotten custody instead of Maya, that if the court had given him his son, the accident never would have happened. It was cruel, and it was false, but it was also a glimpse into how ugly these battles can get." "What happened?" The judge saw through his manipulation. But it took 6 months and a lot of legal fees that Maya's estate could barely afford. He met her gaze. I learned a lot about family court during that time. If you want, I can recommend my sister's lawyer. She's sharp and she actually cares about her clients. It was help, but offered in a way that left the choice and the control in Elena's hands. Elena felt the difference. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. They stood there in the quiet of her living room, the air thick with things unsaid. Daniel glanced at his watch and frowned. I should go. I have a flight back to Seattle in the morning. You're leaving? Elena tried to keep the disappointment from her voice. Just for a few days. We're launching a new product line, and I need to be there for the investor presentations. But he pulled out his phone. I could be back by Friday. There's this Italian place in Portland that supposedly has the best pasta in the Pacific Northwest. Would you and Sophia want to have dinner with me? Elena's heart did a complicated flip. This was crossing a line from professional consultation to something else entirely, something that felt dangerously close to dating. Daniel, is this a good idea? With everything that's happening with Robert, with us trying to figure out what this is? I think it's the best idea I've had in years, Daniel said simply. But if you're not ready, I understand. I just know that when I'm with you, I feel more like myself than I have since Maya died, and I don't want to lose that. The honesty in his voice undid her. Friday, Elena heard herself say, 7 o'clock. But Daniel, this is a date. Let's stop pretending it's a consultation. The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise. It's a date. He helped her get Sophia upstairs and settled into bed. As they stood in her small living room afterwards, the space felt intimate in a way the cafe hadn't. This was her life. The modest furniture, the toys carefully organized in bins, Sophia's science posters covering one wall. Daniel studied the posters with genuine interest. She made these? For her.
The week leading up to their Friday date was a whirlwind. Elena met with her lawyer, who confirmed that Robert had indeed filed for joint custody. The legal battle would be expensive and draining, but winnable if they could demonstrate his pattern of abandonment. Meanwhile, Daniel called every evening not to discuss the case or offer money, but simply to talk. They discussed everything: Sophia's love of astronomy, the challenges of Elena's college classes she'd quietly started taking online, Daniel's complicated relationship with his company's board of directors, who wanted him to be more ruthless. These conversations, late at night when Sophia was asleep and Daniel was alone in his Seattle penthouse, felt like they were building something real, something that existed outside of wealth and struggle, in a space where they were just two people learning to trust again. Friday arrived with Elena nervous in a way she hadn't been since her first date with Robert 12 years ago. She'd bought a new dress, a simple navy blue that Sophia had insisted made her look like a movie star. Daniel had texted that he'd pick them up at 6:30 for their 7 o'clock reservation. At 6:15, Elena's phone rang. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," she answered, smiling. "Running late?" "Elena," his voice was tight, strained in a way she'd never heard before. "I can't make it tonight." Her smile faltered. "Oh, is everything okay?" "No, something's happened with the company, a hostile takeover attempt. Our primary competitor just announced they're buying up shares, and if they get control of the board—" He broke off, and she could hear stressed voices in the background. "I'm sorry, I know this is terrible timing, but I have to stay in Seattle. We're in emergency meetings all weekend." "Of course," Elena said automatically, trying to ignore the crushing disappointment. "I understand. Your company comes first." "Elena, that's not—" "Daniel, it's fine, really. Go save your company. We can reschedule." She hung up before he could hear her voice break. Sophia emerged from her room in her special dinner outfit, her face falling as she saw her mother's expression. "He's not coming, is he?" Elena plastered on a smile. "He had an emergency at work, mija. But you know what? We're still going out, just us girls. How about that pizza place you love?" Sophia tried to match her mother's fake enthusiasm, but Elena could see the disappointment in her daughter's eyes.
It wasn't just about the fancy dinner. Sophia had been excited to spend time with Daniel, the science angel who'd made her birthday magical. As they ate mediocre pizza in a too-loud restaurant, Elena felt a familiar sinking feeling. This was how it started with Robert. The broken promises, the work that always came first, the slow realization that she and Sophia would always be secondary to whatever else demanded his attention. She tried to tell herself it wasn't the same. Daniel had a legitimate crisis, but a treacherous voice in her head whispered, "Rich men always have crises, and poor women always wait." Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel called when he could, but the calls became shorter, more strained. Elena saw news reports about the Crosstech situation, stock prices falling, board meetings, speculation about whether Daniel would maintain control of his own company. Then she saw something that made her blood run cold. A photo splashed across a business news website of Daniel at a high-profile charity gala in Seattle. He was in a tuxedo, looking every inch the billionaire, and on his arm was a stunning woman in a red dress. The caption identified her as Victoria Chen, his business partner, and the woman leading the defense against the takeover. Elena stared at the photo on her phone screen. They looked perfect together, wealthy, powerful, from the same world. Victoria's hand rested possessively on Daniel's arm, and they were both smiling. The article quoted Daniel, "Victoria has been my partner in building Crosstech for 8 years. I trust her completely. Together, we're going to weather this storm." Partner. Trust. Together. Elena felt sick. She told herself she was irrational. This was business. Victoria was helping save his company, but the way they looked in that photo, the casual intimacy of their body language, the way that Daniel had gone from calling Elena every night to radio silence for 3 days. Her phone buzzed. Finally, a text from Daniel. "I'm sorry I've been missing in action. This situation is consuming everything. I miss you. Can we talk tomorrow?" Elena stared at the message. Tomorrow. Always tomorrow, never today. She texted back, "Sure. Hope you're okay." But something had shifted inside her. The walls she had carefully lowered were reconstructing themselves, brick by painful brick. This was the reality check she had needed. She and Daniel lived in different worlds, and when push came to shove, he would always belong to his world, not hers. That night, Robert called. "I heard about your boyfriend," he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Saw the photos of him with that Chinese woman at the gala. Tough break, Elena. Guys like that don't end up with women like you, not permanently." "What do you want, Robert?" "Just wanted to remind you that when this thing with the rich boy falls apart, I'll still be here. Sophia's real father. Maybe it's time to reconsider our arrangement. Joint custody. A real family again." "Over my dead body," Elena said, and hung up. But his words burrowed into her insecurities like worms. Women like you. As if she should have known better than to reach for something beyond her station. The next morning, Elena was at the community center where she volunteered on Saturdays, helping run a children's literacy program. She was reading to a group of kids when Marge from the bookstore rushed in, her face pale and her phone in hand. "Elena, you need to see this." The news article headline made Elena's stomach drop. Crosstech CEO Daniel Cross under fire. Board question leadership amid personal distractions. The article was brutal. It quoted unnamed board members suggesting Daniel's judgment had become compromised by personal matters. There were veiled references to his association with individuals outside his normal social circle, and speculation that his unstable personal life was affecting his ability to lead the company. And there, in the middle of the article, was a photo of Daniel at Sophia's birthday party, kneeling on the grass next to Sophia and Elena, all 3 of them laughing. Someone had leaked it. Someone was using his connection to Elena as ammunition against him. Her phone rang. "Daniel." "Have you seen it?" His voice was tight with barely controlled fury. Yes. Elena, I'm so sorry. I don't know who leaked those photos, but I'm going to... Daniel, stop. Elena's voice was calmer than she felt. This is my fault. I'm the liability here. That's not true. This is Victoria. She's been against my distractions from the beginning. She thinks the only way to save the company is for me to be completely focused, completely isolated. Maybe she's right. Silence on the other end. Elena, what are you saying? I'm saying that maybe this was a mistake. You live in a world where people try to take your company away, where your relationships become weapons. I live in a world where I'm trying to keep food on the table and my daughter out of my ex-husband's clutches. Those worlds don't mix. So you're just giving up? Because of some article? I'm being realistic, Elena said, her voice breaking despite her efforts to stay strong. You need to focus on your company, and I need to focus on Sophia. We both knew this was complicated. Maybe it's too complicated. Elena, please don't do this. Let me come see you. We can... There's no we, Daniel. There's you and your billion-dollar company, and there's me and my daughter. And right now, both of us need to protect what's ours. She hung up before he could respond, before he could hear the words that might convince her to stay. Elena sat in the empty literacy center, surrounded by children's books and broken dreams, and finally let herself cry. She'd let herself hope. She'd let herself believe that someone like him could really want someone like her, and reality had crashed in to remind her of her place. What Elena didn't know was that at that very moment, Daniel was making a decision that would change everything. He was walking out of his emergency board meeting, ignoring the shocked faces of his directors, and telling his assistant to clear his schedule. "Where are you going?" Victoria demanded, chasing him down the hallway. "To fix what actually matters," Daniel said, and kept walking. Sometimes, the most important deal isn't the one that saves your company. It's the one that saves your soul.
Daniel drove through the night from Seattle to Elena's town, a 2-hour journey that he made in 90 minutes. His phone buzzed incessantly with calls from Victoria, from board members, from his lawyers. He ignored them all. For 8 years, he'd let his company define him. He'd made every decision based on what was best for Crosstech, what would maximize shareholder value, what would cement his legacy as a business titan. And in doing so, he'd lost Maya. He'd lost himself. He wasn't going to lose Elena too. It was nearly midnight when he knocked on her apartment door. Elena opened it cautiously, her face puffy from crying, shock evident when she saw him standing there. "Daniel? What are you... You're supposed to be in Seattle, the board meeting." "I walked out," he said simply. "You what?" "I walked out of the meeting. Victoria's handling it. The board can make whatever decision they want." He stepped closer, his voice urgent. "Elena, I've spent the last 8 years trying to honor my sister's memory by building something that would make her proud. But I got it wrong. She wouldn't want me to sacrifice my life for a company. She'd want me to choose the people who matter." Elena shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel, you can't just walk away from your life's work because of some article." "I'm not walking away because of an article. I'm walking away from a system that tells me I have to choose between success and love, between power and connection. I'm choosing you, Elena. I'm choosing Sophia. I'm choosing a life where I actually show up." "But your company will survive without me micromanaging every decision. Or it won't, and I'll start over. Maya never got a chance to start over. I do, and I'm not going to waste it." The raw conviction in his voice made Elena's carefully constructed walls crumble. "You don't understand what you're giving up. People like me, we don't get fairy tale endings. We get by. We survive. You could lose everything." "I've already lost everything that mattered once. Money, power, success, I had all of that, and I was the loneliest person alive. Then I met you. You and Sophia reminded me what it feels like to be human, to care about someone else's happiness more than my own portfolio. And if choosing that means losing the company, that I never really had anything worth keeping."
Elena stared at him. This man who'd driven through the night, who'd walked out of the most important meeting of his career, who was standing in her modest doorway, offering her everything. "What if I'm not worth it?" she whispered. "What if you give up everything and then realize I'm just ordinary?" Daniel reached out, cupping her face gently in his hands. "Elena Martinez, you are the least ordinary person I've ever met. You raised an incredible daughter on your own. You're fighting for an education while working 2 jobs. You face every day with dignity and strength that most CEOs couldn't muster. And you did all of that without anyone's help, without anyone's money, without anyone telling you that you were extraordinary. But you are. You're the most extraordinary person I know." The kiss, when it came, was inevitable. Soft and desperate, and full of promises neither of them knew how to keep yet. When they finally broke apart, Elena was crying again, but this time with something that felt dangerously close to hope. "Come inside. We need to talk about what happens next." Over coffee at her small kitchen table, they talked until dawn. Daniel explained the situation with Crosstech. Victoria and the board wanted him to do a press conference denouncing the distractions in his life, essentially throwing Elena under the bus to save face with investors. "I won't do it," Daniel said firmly. "I'd rather lose the company." "That's not the only option," Elena said slowly. "What if you use this? What if instead of running from the story, you control it?" "What do you mean?" Elena's mind was working, all her survival instincts and strategic thinking coming together. "They're painting me as a distraction, a liability. What if you reframe it? What if you show that having a life outside the boardroom makes you a better leader, not worse? What if you announce that Crosstech is going to invest in real communities, not just tech hubs? Launch programs that help people like me, single parents, working-class families trying to advance?" Daniel stared at her. "Turn the attack into an opportunity." "Exactly. Stop playing defense. Make them explain why caring about real people is a weakness. Make them argue against compassion. Let the public decide who's right." A slow smile spread across Daniel's face. "You're brilliant. This is brilliant. It's risky. The board might still push you out. Then I'll start a new company, one built on these principles from day one." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "Elena, will you help me build it? Not as a consultant, as a partner, a real partner, in business and in life." The offer hung between them. Elena thought about all the ways this could go wrong, how their worlds might never really merge, how the scrutiny might become unbearable, how she might always feel like she was borrowing someone else's life. But she also thought about Sophia's face when Daniel explained constellations at her party, about the way Daniel listened to her, really listened to her, as if her perspective mattered, about how he'd driven through the night because she was crying. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Me too. But I'd rather be scared with you than comfortable without you." Before Elena could respond, they heard a small voice from the doorway. "Mr. Daniel?" Sophia stood there in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "You came back." Daniel's face softened completely. "Of course I came back. I made you a promise, didn't I, that we'd look at the meteor shower next month? I keep my promises." Sophia ran over, and Daniel scooped her up, her small arms wrapping around his neck. Over her daughter's shoulder, Elena saw the expression on Daniel's face, the pure, uncomplicated love of a man who'd found his family. "Yes," Elena said softly. Daniel looked at her questioningly over Sophia's head. "Yes, I'll be your partner, in everything." The press conference Daniel held 3 days later shocked the business world. Standing in front of cameras, with Elena by his side, not hidden, not ashamed, but proudly present, Daniel made an announcement that would change Crosstech forever. "My business partner Victoria Chen has suggested that my personal life is a distraction from my ability to lead this company. I'm here to tell you she's absolutely right. My personal life has been a profound distraction from the isolated, money-focused existence I've been living for the past 8 years. This distraction," he gestured to Elena, reminded me why I built Crosstech in the first place. Not to accumulate wealth, but to improve lives. He outlined a new initiative. Crosstech would partner with communities across the country to provide education, resources, and opportunities to working families. They'd create flexible work programs, on-site childcare, and scholarship funds managed by people who'd actually lived the struggles they were trying to address. Elena Martinez will be heading this initiative, Daniel continued, not because she's dating the CEO, but because she has more expertise in this area than anyone I could hire. She's lived it, and that makes her the most qualified person for the job. The business press didn't know what to make of it. Some called it a publicity stunt, others called it revolutionary. But what mattered was that the story shifted. Daniel wasn't a distracted CEO. He was a leader who'd remembered his humanity. Victoria, watching the press conference from the boardroom, felt her carefully planned coup crumbling. The public loved the story. Investors, seeing the positive press, held steady. The hostile takeover lost momentum. She'd underestimated Daniel's willingness to risk everything, and she'd definitely underestimated Elena. 6 months later, Elena sat in her new office at the Crosstech Foundation headquarters. Modest by CEO standards, perfect by her measure. Through the window, she could see Sophia at the after-school program building a robot with other kids. The custody battle with Robert had ended quietly. Faced with Daniel's resources and Elena's ironclad case, he'd backed down, settling for the supervised visitation he'd always been entitled to and rarely used. Elena had finished her first semester of college with straight A's. The program she had designed was launching in 10 cities. And tonight, she was going to a gala. Not as Daniel's charity case or his pretty accessory, but as the director of one of the fastest-growing social impact initiatives in the country. Daniel appeared in her doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. Ready for tonight? Terrified. There will be so many people there who think I don't belong. Good, Daniel said, settling into the chair across from her desk. Good. Let them think that. Then prove them wrong. That's what you do best. Elena smiled. It had been 6 months of challenges, navigating a world that still looked at her with skepticism, dealing with press intrusion, learning to accept help without losing herself. But it had also been 6 months of waking up feeling like she mattered, like her voice counted, like her life was building towards something beyond just survival. Daniel, she said softly. Yes? Thank you for seeing me, for choosing me. He stood, moving around the desk to pull her into his arms. Elena, you've got it backwards. Thank you for choosing me, for teaching me that the best investment I could ever make in real love, real connection, real life. Everything else is just money. He kissed her forehead. That night, at the gala, Elena wore a simple black dress and her head held high. When people asked her how she got in her position, she